Well, welcome once again to worship here in the middle of the season of Easter. It is good to be together here in person in the sanctuary or on our live stream. When my sister and I were young, maybe I was in second grade and Lisa was in kindergarten, our father worked a traditional 9 to 5 job, and our mother worked the swing shift at the hospital, 3 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. It meant that our parents needed some extra help around the house and especially some extra help with childcare. One Saturday morning, our folks sat us down to explain the situation and introduced us to the idea of a person coming to live with us and stay in an extra room we had at our house. Our mom spoke kindly of a woman, Ina Silverberg, who was older, a mumu, or in Finnish, grandmother, who did not have many resources, needed a place to live, and could use a little extra money to help with her finances. Now, the idea of a strange older lady coming to live in our house did not sit well with my second grade mind. I was captive to prejudice. Would she smell? I was inflexible. Would she mess up my after-school playtime with my friends? I was afraid. Would she try to make me eat things I didn't like? Broccoli, liver, peas. I was childish and self-centered. How would her presence mess up my entitled, early elementary, perfectly established, and unchangeable life? Mom, being the mom that she is, calmly spoke of our need to be more like Jesus. I heard that a lot growing up. Chuck, we just need to be more like Jesus. I hated that. She always met my objections with this question. But for our mom, Jesus, his life, and more importantly, his actions were the plumb line by which we measured our own lives, got oriented to how we should be in the world. The bottom line was Jesus welcomed the poor, the stranger, and the outcast, and so then we too must strive to do the same. And in this case, it meant inviting Ina Silverberg to come and stay at our house and in no small way become part of our family's life. In numerous ways, my resistance to welcoming Ina into our family home mirrors the resistance Jesus experienced as he came to live and minister among God's people. John's gospel, from which all our gospel readings this Easter season are taken, is clear from the very first chapter. John writes, Jesus was in the world, and the world came into being through him, yet the world did not know him. He came to what was his own, and here's the key part, and his own people did not accept him. How many times does Jesus lament that he came to bring love and grace and truth only to be rejected by the established, the in control, the powerful? We might take a guess at the number of times, but it's safe to say that that number, the number that Jesus was rejected by the advantaged folk, far outweighed the times he was welcomed by them with open arms. There was something about Jesus. People who had the advantage knew that he would come and sort of mess things up. I had the advantage. I was the son. I already lived in the house. No one was coming in here and messing up my life. I protested. I lost. Ina Silverberg, our new resident mumu, moved into our house at 810 Florence Avenue in Astoria, Oregon. And I was mad. And I made it clear from the very first breakfast she sat at our kitchen table. I didn't talk with her. I didn't make eye contact. When I gathered up my things to head out the door to school, I met her kind wishes, have a happy day, learn things, with an icy silence. When she greeted me at the door after school, I went directly to my room, shut the door, and plotted my revenge. Maybe she doesn't like spiders, I thought. Maybe worms terrify her. I didn't even go outside and play with my friends that afternoon. I simply spent a couple hours figuring out where I might find a hearty supply of spiders and worms that I could tuck underneath her pillow. Yeah, I was a badass kid. As I mentioned earlier, all our gospel readings this Easter season are from John's gospel. In chapter 6 of John, commonly known as the Bread of Life chapter, Jesus is telling his followers that he is the living bread that came down from heaven, and that if anyone eats of this bread, they will live forever. This proclamation of the astounding life Jesus lays out before them, and what a gift this life is, it was met with some really serious resistance. At the end of chapter 6, the writer tells us many of his followers turned back and no longer walked with him. That's resistance. I shut my bedroom door to the presence of a new care provider in my home. Many of those who first encountered Jesus shut their hearts and minds against the presence of God's love, dwelling right there among them in the physical presence of Jesus. Seems like, at least to me, even after 2,000 years, not much has changed with the human heart. How many of us have some built-in resistance to simple yet profound love of God that comes to dwell with us in Jesus? I know. I have some. And maybe all of us to some degree have some also. I've been thinking about this reality, this resistance to love. Been thinking about it a lot lately. How is it that we both resist the love of God as it comes to us in Jesus, and following that, resist sharing this same love with the people we meet in and through the course of our everyday lives? War is raging in Ukraine. Over 1 million people in the United States alone have died of the coronavirus this past 2 years. 1 million people just in our country. Homelessness, hunger, untreated mental illness continue unabated throughout our states. Addiction and the destructive behaviors that grow out of it are skyrocketing throughout the land. The only thing people seem to really give a hoot about is who is winning and who is losing. Whether it's in politics, on social media, or in the stock market, or in some professional sports league of some kind, the only thing people seem fixated on is who's up, who's down, who's in, who's out. How can I stomp on them and not get stomped on myself? Where's the love that Jesus talks about in our gospel reading today? The love that Anne talked about in our time for children. Not a sappy, sentimental, emotional love, but a sacrificial, self-giving, does not look for a return kind of love. Where is it today? In our communities of faith, our neighborhoods, our schools, in our politics, in our social actions, our care for the earth, our conversations with those who differ from us? Where's the love? I'm not sure I can answer that. But I do know that we are in more dire need of love, need in our own lives, and need to share it with others than we have ever been. Maybe in the history of the human race. We are in dire need. Okay, even in the midst of my current pessimism, there's a memory of what happened that day after school, when I shut my bedroom door and plotted my revenge against the new moo-moo in our house. It may have been an hour, maybe two, but at some point there came a knock on my bedroom door. It was Ina Moo-moo. She had in her hand a plate of chocolate chip cookies. See, moo-moos are smart. They were warm, fresh baked from the oven. She sat down the plate on a little desk in my room. Next to it, she placed a glass of milk. I barely looked up from my slumped over position on the floor of my room. Soon, the thought of worms and spiders were replaced by the smell of cookies and her kindly voice. I thought you might like these. These things finally began to melt the resistance of my cold, stony heart. I looked up and I saw the most genuine, warm, loving smile that I'd ever seen radiate across a face. There was something about that smile, her genuine love, that saved me that day. She had come from God knows what terrible situation, and yet what she did was show and share love. Could have gone a lot of different ways that day. Maybe become an ever resentful, unmanageable problem child. That didn't happen. At least on most days. Somehow, though, dwelling there among us, sharing her love with us, those actions drew me into a different way of life. A way of life that valued, if not always practiced, love for those around me. Jesus says, I give you a new commandment, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you also should love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. I don't think it took Jesus long to come to understand that the love poured into him by God, the love which then flowed out of his heart to a wounded and grieving world, Jesus did not take him long to understand that this love would be met with resistance. See, that kind of love has a way of changing things, transforming the world, and the world on most days does not want to be changed or transformed. Like the second grade me, we have all too much invested in the way that things are now to be open to the way that God is making them new. We're a stubborn collective, we human beings. And our stubbornness brought Jesus all the way to the cross. His fork in the road. God could have turned off all the lavish love Jesus had shared with us up to that point. God could have said, forget humans, they're too much trouble, let's get another flood going. But God didn't. Instead, God decided that there on that cross, working through Jesus, God would draw heaven and earth closer together closer than divine love and earthly need had ever been up to that point. It was very simple. God's love would continue to flow to us through Jesus' pierced hands and wounded side. And as his injuries grew, as the pain he must have experienced grew stronger, there was only one word given, one clear statement for all of us to hear. Jesus came that we may have life and have it abundantly. The first Saturday after Ina had come to live with us in our house, my parents called another impromptu meeting, my sister and myself. "How's it going?" they asked. Oh, my sister, she was gushing on and on about singing songs in Finnish and cookies and bedtime stories. She loved this new arrangement. What do you expect? She was only in kindergarten. A tiny little bit of my stone cold heart was still hanging on. And I mumbled something like, "I guess it's okay." Our mom, ever the Jesus conduit, told a little story. "I want you to know something. When Ina Mumu arrived, she had very little. Just a few clothes in a suitcase and even fewer coins in her pocket. We hadn't even begun to pay her. Yet that first day, while you were at school, she walked to the market, bought some flour, eggs, chocolate chips. She came home, baked you cookies, gave you milk, all to welcome you home on her first day here. You don't find that kind of love much in the world these days." It was 1972. Remember what life was like back then? Nation tearing itself apart. War raging. Homeless on the street. Not much different than today. My mom said, maybe we all might try celebrating this love when it shows up on our doorstep, when it makes a place for itself in our home. This little story of love making a place for itself in my family's hearts, in our lives, in our home, is the same story that we tell all throughout the Easter season of a love so present, so vibrant, so self-giving that even death on a cross cannot stop it. On Ina's last day with us, as she prepared to move into a more permanent dwelling with a different family in a larger home, she baked and shared some of those same wonderful, delicious chocolate chip cookies with us again. She said that things would be different, that we wouldn't always have her in our house, but we would always have her love. I think my sister and I, by that point, even wanted to go with her to be able to enjoy her smile and the cookies, of course, just a few more times. It's hard to fathom, even now, after all these years, how much her love changed our family, especially when our mom and dad were gone and working so much. How much it changed me. Jesus told his disciples, "Little children, I am with you only a little longer. You will look for me, and as I said to the Jews, so now I say to you, where I am going, you cannot come." No, we cannot come. We must stay. For in Jesus' mind, what we do here as bearers of his love is far more important than any eternal bliss. as I received from Ina, so we all now receive from Jesus. A love that fills us, flows through us, so that through us we might change the course, dare I say it, even of the entire universe. It's been many long years now since Mumu left this earth to finally share in Jesus' heavenly bliss. But her love has not left. After her death, my family shared a plate of cookies in her honor to remember her, to celebrate the love she had and shared and still flowed through us. Maybe in the end, Ina would say that love really can change a family, change a church, change anything, change even an entire universe. But I'm pretty sure she would say it this way. This will only happen one chocolate chip cookie at a time. Amen.